Hey, everyone! You've read the title, so you already know what this video is going to be about. This is definitely not a topic of interest for everyone, but I'm willing to bet even the people most annoyed by the culture surrounding astrology know exactly which zodiac sign they are. We might generally associate its huge popularity to 2014 Tumblr and the countless dedicated blogs and memes it has accumulated, but it's crazy to think just how far back the fascination for astrology goes in history. And while I'm no expert on the subject, I for one love astrology. I know my fair share on the general traits of each zodiac sign, and it's always something I love reading about, as cheesy as it may be. Now don't ask me about the meanings behind planet positions and such, because my knowledge definitely stops at the personality traits attributed to each sign. See, I'm a Pisces, so I care about the emotional aspects of it more than the logic behind it. Anyways, my point is, I love astrology. You know what else I love? Character design and original characters. That's right, you already knew it from reading the title, but I am going to draw all 12 zodiac signs as humanoid characters. Of course, I won't be drawing all 12 in this single video. I do care about my mental health. So instead, I've decided to make it a 4-part series. I will be designing 3 characters for each video in the order zodiac signs come in. So for today, we are starting with Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. You will notice for this idea I've put aside my usual anime style and instead going for a more cartoonish look. This will allow me to create designs that are more simple in style, but make no mistake, simpler does not mean easier. It's actually a lot harder to try to convey something as specific as a zodiac sign in a simple way, with elements that will instantly communicate that. I also wanted to try for a style that looks like it could come from a video game. That idea was very inspired by the recent miniseries of Fiona and Cake, with the characters of Casper and Nova. The designs and the overall low poly style just works so well. I'm also now realizing I was for sure subconsciously inspired by Wind Waker. You'll probably notice it too. Now let's get started with Aries. I started off with a very simple base as I didn't have any clear ideas just yet for the design. I looked at lots of Aries mood boards and pictures to get a grasp of the vibe I wanted to get across, but also based on the way I perceive Aries. I already knew for sure the general color palette would be all in reds and browns. Considering Aries is a fire sign, warm colors would work the best for the character. Aries to me has a strong feminine energy, hence why I decided to make the character a girl. The femininity I see in Aries is that of a quiet but fierce motivation. A burning feeling that once released can be extremely strong and blinding, but is rarely let out entirely. Though stubborn, the way I see Aries is as a calm and stable presence. Just don't get on their bad side. I gave her the horns of a ram, the animal that represents the sign. I think it instantly gives her that sort of stereotypical stubborn trait I mentioned earlier. The clothes were a bit of a challenge, as I didn't want to have them look too modern or too specific to any time period. I scrolled through Pinterest a bunch and stumbled upon a 70s look that had a really appealing silhouette. Now I know I just said I didn't want the clothes to look like they belonged to a certain time period, but I think I managed to make it look neutral on that aspect. But when I thought I was done with the overall design, I realized I was not satisfied with the face. It was cute, but it didn't scream Aries to me, and I felt kind of stuck. Thankfully though, I happen to have a best friend who is also an artist. So as I often do, I came to her crying for help and she delivered. She sketched how the face could look, and it just helped so much to get me out of my struggling bubble. She said it'd probably be better for the face to reflect the fierce attitude with sharper eyes, and she was totally right. Not only does she look cuter in my opinion, she also looks a lot more cohesive with the rest of her design. Thank you again, bestie, you know who you are. At that point, all that was left was tidying up the drawing. Also, something I forgot to mention earlier is that one of the first ideas I had for her was to give her hair a shape that sort of evokes a flame. It could also look like a wave, but with the color scheme I think it's pretty obvious what it's supposed to be, right? I wasn't sure yet how detailed I wanted her clothes to be, so I kinda played around with it here and there. I knew this first design would become the standard for the 11 others that are to come, so I couldn't help but feel some pressure about that. I was initially planning to make a cleaner illustration for each character after coming up with their designs, but seeing how long it took me to create ARIES, I decided to put that project aside for the moment. For now I'm focusing on creating the designs and then clean the base as much as possible. You might have noticed also, but the design on her dress is meant to represent the ARIES symbol. Just a simple way to make a direct nod at it. The structure of her face and bangs are also directly inspired by it. I thought it could be a good idea to repeat the pattern throughout the design. Finally, I was getting kinda annoyed by the T-pose, so I freed her from an eternity of sore arms. It initially helped with creating her outfit, but poor girl was starting to look just a bit ridiculous like that. And with that, we have our final design for ARIES. I'm very pleased with her for the moment being, but who knows, maybe after a couple more designs I'll feel even more inspired and change some elements. Do you like her? Let's get started with Taurus next. For those who love all things astrology, do you also have favorite signs? Because I definitely have some, and one of them is Taurus. I'm not sure why that is exactly, but I guess I love the general vibes this sign gives off. They're patient and reliable, but they can also be possessive and materialistic at times. And just like Aries, they can be quite stubborn. But sometimes it's what can make them so reliable in the first place. Not only that, but they're hard workers and love using their hands. For this character, I initially didn't have a gender in mind, but I guess it turned out to be a boy. And, also just like Aries, the face area proved to be a real struggle. Character design might be fun, but it is not easy. Though you can definitely see from the start I had a general idea of elements I wanted for the design, I just really struggled to draw it in a way I was happy with. Like the shape of the hair, I clearly wanted to include triangular shapes, but finding how to apply it to the design was a whole other story. However, I did figure out what I wanted the bangs to look like, which is a cute little nod to the Taurus symbol. Not gonna lie, I was kinda proud of this one. Something I was trying to avoid, especially with him, was to end up looking like an Animal Crossing character. You know how on the GameCube, the boy characters had horns on their hats? And the whole round hand thing, and the eyes. It wasn't even on purpose, I promise. I did finally manage to get the hair to look how I wanted it to. The shape finally felt just right and fitting of the vibes I wanted for the character. The horns were also bothering me too much, so I switched out to this, which makes it even more obvious that it's supposed to represent the Taurus symbol. I also decided to give him earrings as a reference to Taurus being typically shown to love owning expensive things and material things such as jewelry. As for the clothes, well, quite honestly, it was another struggle. You'll be hearing me say that a lot today. I already had some color palettes in mind and I couldn't quite imagine what I wanted the outfit to look like, so I decided to just color in as it is and figure out what to change after that. Sometimes adding the colors just helps me visualize the final result better. And then you know what I did after that? That's right, I did the unthinkable. I looked at references. I actually went straight to one of the best sources of inspiration to me, Zelda character designs. And then it was just a matter of minutes to figure out a pretty unique looking outfit that didn't look too modern. And not to spoil or anything, but out of the 3 designs I did for this video, Taurus did end up being my favorite. His design made me realize especially I could allow myself to add more details to these designs while still remaining simple. As you may have guessed by now, Taurus is pretty much done designing and all that was left was neatening up the drawing. While designing him was not easy, I still feel like it somehow went smoother than it did for Aries. Maybe it's because I'm just really pleased with the design. To me, even if I removed the symbol elements, he would still look like Taurus, and this is exactly what I wanted to achieve. What do you think? Do you agree? With Aries and Taurus done, we're down to our last and certainly not least design for today, Gemini. To be completely honest, Gemini is not the sign I'm the most familiar with. Or rather, I guess I don't understand them as much as some other signs. So that was already one thing to make this journey more complex. Not only that, but the footage you're seeing right now is actually not my first try at the character. I did a whole other design before this one and it was a mess. A mess I'm not really thinking of sharing, because it is that bad. What really made it difficult to me is that I didn't know how to approach the twin theme that is associated with Gemini. Because one thing I knew for sure was that I didn't want to do actual twins. Designing a single character is hard. I couldn't imagine having to design a second one for the same theme. I also didn't want to make it identical twins either. So what I was left with was the concept of duality. The seriousness and the fun-loving aspects that made Gemini so unique. The first idea I had was the character wearing multiple masks, kind of like a crown, but I decided against it. Geminis don't wear masks, it's just how they are. So instead, I went for a headpiece that would somehow represent that duality. I thought of making them abstract-looking faces first, but again, I scratched that. Another idea I had was to give the character vitiligo. Vitiligo is a chronic autoimmune disorder that causes the loss of pigments in the skin, which makes it have patches of a different, paler color. I thought this could be another way to visually represent the duality, but also I just think it looks so pretty. You might notice this design is definitely more on the feminine side, and that might be because I kind of associate Gemini with the beauty of glamour. It just seemed right to make her a girl that looks goddess-like. For some reasons, unlike the two previous characters, I was a bit less sure when it came to the color palette for Gemini. I personally associate the sign with a cold blue color, but it can't just be that, I needed more colors. I tried many other shades of blue, warmer and colder in tones, along with varying shades of gray to try and complement the look properly. At least I knew I wanted to keep the yellow accents to give it that slight punch of colors. Here's when I decided that instead of going for faces, I'd be using sun and moon imagery for the headpiece. I think it summarizes really well what I was trying to get across with her. Honestly, I'm really glad I decided to start over for this character. There's nothing worse than getting a result you're not proud of and sticking with it out of defeat. I'm way happier with her now. And you know what she reminds me of? You know that huge home decor trend back in like the early 2000s, where everything was blue and gold, with whimsical looking suns and moons. She really gives off those vibes, don't you think? She's kinda giving moon emoji too. Gotta love those subconscious inspirations, right? Her poncho is another thing that gave me trouble. I did a lot of back and forth on the details of it. In the end, I think I'm pretty happy with it, and I managed to sneak in the Gemini symbol in it too. Those symbols are like free and endless possibilities of patterns. They're amazing for adding some extra details. Now Miss Gemini was almost finished, and all she needed were some more details to really tie the whole design together. I was really scared when I started over that I wouldn't succeed, but I think I did. I'm honestly really happy with how she looks. She kinda has expensive vibes, if that makes sense. With some final adjustments, here she finally is. What do you think? Does she look Gemini enough? Here are our first 3 designs together. I was scared that once put side by side they wouldn't look good together, but in the end, I think they do. I love seeing the contrast of their different color palettes and their design elements. They're made of different shapes, from different inspirations and emotions, but they still look pretty cohesive. I'd love to see them in an actual video game or something. So, what do you think? Did I manage to properly illustrate those 3 signs in a way that instantly reminds you of them? One thing about zodiac signs is that someone's interpretation of them could be drastically different from mine, and it's what makes this so fun. I'd love to hear if you would have done things differently or other ideas you might have. I had so much fun working on these, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the process. If you did, remember to like and subscribe for more content like this. You can look forward to the 9 remaining designs that are soon to come. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon for some more astrology rambling.